Hi, this is Debbie Sementelli, and I'm continuing to show you how to take this saying and now bring it into Procreate and color it and add some cool things to it. I started out in my other tutorial with a pencil sketch, and then I brush lettered it by hand, and then I scanned it into my computer and cleaned it up a little bit in Photoshop and created a transparent background, and then I saved it as a PNG. But what's really important to note is you can't just click save as PNG. Somehow the background still remained when I did that. So what I had to do is export it and click on the export so that the box comes up that shows all of your options. And in the right hand upper side, you'll see a little box checked for transparency. So you want to make sure that you bring in a PNG to Procreate, and it has a transparent background. So I brought it in black, and I simply cleaned it up and changed it to white. And then I just colored our little teardrops pink. Now we're going to do more fun things to it. This is what I'm going to show you how to create, and then I'm also going to show you how to put a shadow on the lettering. So all of these flowers and the background, these are all part of a Procreate stamp brush kit that I'm creating that will eventually be for sale. But this is more about just showing you how to work with a saying in Procreate and dress it up and make it look a lot more fun. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'll turn that off, but I went ahead and put that orange as my background color, and I'm going to show you that I have my palette set up right here. So all the colors that I'm going to be using, I've already chose them, so that makes it easier and we can work from this palette. So you can see right here that round frame, it's a double frame. So I'm going to choose that color, and I simply press on it and the color shows up. So it changes color automatically for me. And I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to have it be underneath the lettering. So we're going to go and choose that circular frame. It's called a double circle frame. Come over here, and I'm going to make sure to press in the middle, because if I were to press like over here, I'm going to lose a lot of the frame. Press the arrow again and simply pull on one of the corners, and that enlarges it. And again, working with what I've already created, I'm just going to change the color to this, and I'm doing this just to speed up the process for you. So I'm simply dragging that color into the center, and now it fills the center. So if I go back to this, and I can see that I have these different flowers. So we'll start with this little flower here. So we're going to make sure to create another layer. And this time I'm going to choose a different color. So if you'll see here, I use that dark orange. So we simply go to the color palette, and I'm using the dark orange, and we're just going to place it there. And these are all things that we can move around, so I'm just going to put it there for now. I like to put them all on separate layers. That way I can move them as I want individually. And one of the things to note, this one is slightly bigger than this one. It's better to change the sizes. It just makes it more interesting. And now, instead of duplicating those, I'm just really going to, instead of restamping them, I'm just going to duplicate them. So duplicate this one. And all I'm doing is touching that arrow, and that allows me to move it. Let's move this down here. Again, just kind of playing around with these right now. I can move them later, and we're going to do some more things with them later. So I can now put these all in a group, so I can work with them later, and I don't have them all on these individual layers. And so I'm just going to say group, and I can name the group flowers, whoops, 1. Okay. So now we're going to add our other flower. Again, I'm going to go back to this to show you what I'm doing. So this is the second flower that I'm going to use. And I've actually got this in a set of 3. And I'll show you right here. And I'm going to use the pink this time. And since I've already got it there, I'm just going to press on the little teardrop, and that will give me that. So let's beef this up, and we can turn it. And I might decide to put those underneath the frame, but right now, again, I just duplicate that layer, bring it down here. I'll turn it around. And to move it, it's better to stay out of the square. If I go into the square, I'm going to be changing the size of it. So it's better to just stay outside of the square. So I'll just put it there for now. That's not bad. I might adjust this one. And so I can again group these and say flowers 2. So you can play around with the placement of the flowers until you get it basically where you want it. So I'm going to leave them right there. I think that's good. And now I'm going to show you something else that we did. And I'm just going to zoom in here and show you what I actually did was I colored the insides differently. I even added another flower underneath that one in the light pink. So I'm going to go ahead and color those with that orange, the inside of the pink flowers. So we go up to the pink flowers, and I have to click on the one that I want so I know that that's the bottom one. And I can just rename this bottom. That's helpful. Okay, so now I'm just going to drag this into the center. Okay. And when you just want to color one section and you find like it's coloring more than one, or you see the color drop threshold, if I move my pen, that moves the threshold, which means it's not going to color as many things around it. So if you ever find like you're trying to color something and it's coloring things around it, just move the pencil, grab the color to the spot you want, move the pencil to the left, and you'll see that come up, and that's how you can handle that. Okay, so now we're going to take the other flower that we had. Let's take this one. It's slightly different than the other one that we used, and we're going to use the lighter pink right here. We want to create a layer underneath these flowers because that's where they're going to go. And it just kind of almost makes like a double flower. And again, I'm going to add another layer for each flower. I kind of like that there. I'll move it just slightly. So it's just a fun thing to make a double flower and just adds another kind of layer. We'll make that one smaller. Kind of fun. Now another thing I could have done is I could have done all of that and then just duplicated it and moved it here. So we're going to group these. And now I'll duplicate the group. And now I can press on the arrow and move this around. And there we go. So that adds another dimension, which is kind of fun. And I'm going to call this one the bottom. Okay, so we have those flowers, we have our orange flowers, and I'm going to show you again what we did originally. We recolored the orange with the purple center. So let's go and do that. So we go to the orange, and I think I'll rename these two. And I'll just move these so that the tops and bottoms are together. So we have the top left, and we're going to go in with the purple color. So we're going to change our color to the purple. Okay, so our flowers are looking pretty good. Now we want to change the background a little bit. So if you'll see, notice here, we created a little bit of a splattering with the dark orange. So what we do is we're going to go above the, I'm going to actually come in here and add a layer, and now I'm going to move it down there. Okay, so I want to have this layer above my background color. I'm going to switch to the dark orange, and I'm going to go in and get a splatter brush. So again, I've created some brushes with textures. You can see here I've used paper towels and some little screens and toothbrush. And so now I'm going to go and choose this toothbrush spray. It will probably be named something else when I have my kit out, but I'm just going to put a little bit behind there. And if I want to erase some, I'd like to use the same brush. Let's go to that toothbrush spray again. Make sure we have it large. And I can come here and take some of this out. There's a little bit too much. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to add something to the inside here. So I like kind of something very subtle. So I'm going to darken this background just a little bit. So I want to get a subtle brush. Sometimes that's a good one, the screen brush. So I'm going to go with this Screen 5 brush, and I've created a layer above the layer that I want it to go on. And now I'm going to create a clipping mask so it only goes in there and it doesn't go over here. And I'm going to enlarge this screen a little bit. So you see it's not going on the flowers. Okay, so let's leave that right there. Okay, so now we have our flowers, and I'm going to go ahead and put the lettering back in. I want to see what that looks like with it, if everything is kind of where I want it to be. And that's actually looking pretty good. And so what I want to do now is I want to go back in here, I think, and see how that will look if I erase some of that border. So make sure to click on the layer. I have a brush that I was using before, which is a technical pen. And let's see if we come in here and erase this, if we like how that looks. Kind of shows the flowers off more. Yeah, I like that. So we're going to go to the bottom section. And I would only do this once I was happy with where everything was, because then it would be hard to change it. So I think that's looking good, and I'm real happy with how all of that's working. And so now I want to create a second layer of the lettering and these little teardrop things so that I can add a shadow. So I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to turn off the top because that's going to remain the same. And for the bottom, I'm going to change and use this dark orange. And so I'm going to color it the dark orange. And this is going to be underneath. Going to be serving as our shadow color. So now we'll turn back on our white, but we stay on the orange, and we're going to hit the arrow. And now, depending on where we want the shadow, I think I want it over here. I'm going to pull that out there. And if I wanted to also, I could go to the white and pull it out a little bit more. Well, that's looking pretty good. I forgot to also make these orange. I'm going to lighten this background just a little bit because I want to get more contrast. I like that better. So now I go back to my orange. And so now I've got these lines in between here. You can see where you can see the blue. So I'm going to go back and get any kind of, I always tend to go to this technical pen, but anything that you have the ability to make it smaller if you need to go in tight. And I'm simply going to be on that orange layer, and now I'm simply coloring it in, and make sure to get these kinds of spots. And I want to kind of come over here so as though that has that dimension to it. Bring that line out here. So you can see what I'm doing is simply creating the dimension by filling in where that background color is, and also just putting a cleaner line there so that it kind of shows that dimension better. That one didn't work as well. So you just do this to the whole piece. I will fast forward through this so you can see everything I'm doing in less time. Okay, So we've got our shadow all created. I feel like I want to make this slightly lighter so that it shows up better against that orange. So I'm going to come on the first layer and just go in and let's see. Yeah, that makes it better. I like that better. Sometimes you try to change one thing and that doesn't work and you go to the other thing and then that works. If we wanted to, we could add more texture to the lettering. You got to be careful. You don't want to get too crazy. So, or we could add more shadow to the shadow. So let's go with that. So I'm going to go to this orange and I'm going to make it slightly darker like that. And now I'm going to get one of those sprays. Let's go with the toothbrush spray. And where it would be darker, let's add another layer. And again, we're going to put a clipping mask. And where it is likely to be darker, so if this were an actual three-dimensional thing, it would be darker here, and this would be more of a lighter area because of the oval shape. Similarly here. So we're going to go in and create a little bit more dimension. Oops, gotta go down in size. Now let's go up a little bit. Okay, that's better. So I'm going to show, I'll do one letter and I'll show you the difference that makes even here. So you see how that creates even more dimension? So there'd be a lot more darkness in there. Darker in the folds. And even a little bit on top. A lot of darkness here. So just imagine if this was a three-dimensional object and you think about where would you find the darkest places. On a flatter surface, it's going to be more shadow there and some lightness here. Oh, we have some spots where we missed, so I'll have to go back in and fix those. So just to show you a comparison, look at the create your own, I didn't quite finish unique, compared to lettering style. Just adding that little bit of shadow makes a huge difference in letting everything pop. Same thing if you look at these. So you're just going to continue to do the whole thing like that. Okay, so I completed all of the shadowing, all of the extra shadowing, and you can see how that really makes a difference. So now I want to pop these out a little bit more, not too much, but I am going to take white and take this screen 1 brush, and I'll create a layer above the lettering in white and make sure that I set the clipping mask on, which I've done. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of white, and I think I'm kind of do more on the tips. Maybe that was a little bit too much. Add a little bit more. And this is what's fun about Procreate. You know, you can really try different things, and if you don't like it, you just double tap and get rid of it. So that's kind of fun. Something makes me want to play around with this frame a little bit more. So I touched the color so I could get the color, and I feel like I want to go in and add a little bit of a darker version of that. I just want to see what will happen. And I can come on the layer that already exists that's a clipping mask for that background. Okay, so I just had a thought that I can really make that small, but what if this demonstrated also some of the shadow effect? Ooh, I like that. Okay, so this is how you can just play around with it and see what happens, and don't stress about whether or not it looks perfect. I just think the more that you play, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not an expert at this. I really am just learning this myself, but I think it's a lot of fun, so I'm happy to share it with people. You can even add a little bit more. Let's see what that does. Another shadow in on top of the other shadow, or behind the other shadow. It's like we're really adding a lot of dimension. Let's look at that. Yeah, that's cool too. And we always have to remember where the light source is. So wherever the shadow is, you know the light source is coming from the opposite direction. So whenever you add any shadow, you always keep that light source in mind. So that has a lot of dimension to it. Okay, so I'm going to call it a day with that. We could go on forever trying to add more texture, and I encourage you to just play around and see what works for you. So I want to just point out the most important thing is having a good composition, having the flourishing and everything working well and fitting well, because if you don't have a great composition, it doesn't matter any of the cool things that you do to it, it's not going to look as good. So always start with your pencil skeleton, creating the best possible composition, do the best job you can of lettering and then cleaning up that lettering, and then bring it into Procreate and go to town and have fun. Thanks for watching. I'm going to do more Procreate tutorials, so I hope you'll stick with me as I learn more. I'm going to share more with you. Have a good day. Bye.